All right, ladies and gentlemen, Chapter 7, Lesson 3, How Congress Works. Before we can figure out how Congress works, we need to know what the qualifications are for you to serve in Congress. First, everything about the legislative branch is typically held in Article 1 of the Constitution. That includes things like qualifications for Congress. So if you go into Article 1, you wonder, gee, what do I have to be a senator or a representative? You'll find it there. So for a senator, as we see, 30 years old, citizen for 9 years, and of course, hopefully this makes sense, you have to live in the state you represent. So if you're the senator for Florida, you can't have a house in California, you spend your time living there. So you live in the state you represent. A congressman or representative is going to be a little younger. Their minimum age is 25, and they could be citizens for a shorter period of time. They have to be citizens for 7 years, and of course, you're going to live in the state you represent too. A little bit of trivia. The pay's not terrible, $174,000 a year. I'm sure most of us wouldn't mind a paycheck like that, except if you're Elon Musk or somebody. To put that in perspective, what is $174,000 a year? Well, I'm a highly paid Florida educator, and I'm happy to get my paycheck every month, but my paycheck is about, or the congressional paycheck is about 4 of my paychecks. So you multiply my paycheck by 4, you're getting what a congressman makes. Hope they earn it. One single slide, one single graph for you to look at, one single chart to consult if you want to see the differences between congressmen who serve in the House and congressmen who serve in the Senate. And again, in the House, you could be younger, 25. Senate, a little older, 30. And we're going to see president, you need to be a little older still. The age is going to be 35. Citizenship, have to be a citizen for 7 years to serve in the House, 9 years to serve in the Senate. And residence, of course, you gotta live in the state you represent. And in the House of Representatives, you're supposed to kind of live in the district you represent. So Matt Gaetz is our representative. It's kind of expected that he's living in Florida District 1, which is, of course, the Alabama border to a couple, 3 counties over. What are some of the privileges of Congress? This one always comes up. Is it an EOC question? I don't know. It's this strange word, a new vocabulary term for you, franking. What's franking? If you serve in Congress, you get free postage, but only for job-related mail. So if you're writing a letter to a constituent, they may have asked you a question, you want to write a letter back to them. That mail you send to your constituents that's related to business and your business of being a congressperson, free. Which kind of makes sense. If you're a congressman, you're a senator, would you want to have to pay out of your own pocket to send your constituents mail? No. But it does have to be job related. You don't get free mail to send out Christmas cards and birthday invitations. That would be personal. You get franking privilege for your professional mail needs. All right. To be a congressman is a tough job. To be a senator, a little more prestigious. You're representing an entire state. It's a bigger job. And it's a job that's big enough that you can't do it by yourself. So you don't. You get what is called a staff. A staff is a bunch of employees who work for you and support you to help you do your job as a congressman. As part of this, you'll have offices both in Washington, D.C., that's where Congress is, and in the place you represent. So we're going to see if you are Florida District 1's Congressman Matt Gaetz. You definitely have to have an office in Washington, D.C., because you're up there on Capitol Hill in Washington doing your job. But you also need offices here so your constituents can contact you. Same thing with a senator. You have your Washington, D.C. office, and we're going to see you probably need several offices throughout the state so your constituents can find some way to contact you. Great. So you have a staff. They help you. What's the stuff that staff do? Could be anything. You have lower level staff who are going to do a lot more menial work, answering phones, putting stuff in the mail, running errands. And then you have more senior level staff, people who are more experienced in government, who are working with other congressional staffers, other politicians, this new term called lobbyists. A lobbyist is somebody who represents an interest group. We're going to talk about interest groups a lot. But interest groups are groups of like-minded people, usually who are tied to or connected some sort of political goal, message, or interest. So you may have heard of the NRA, National Rifle Association. That's an interest group of like-minded people who are interested in firearms and gun rights. So that's a key interest group. And your staff will be working with these interest groups. The NRA, all about gun rights. The Audubon Society, birds in the environment. The AARP, an interest group that represents older and retired Americans. So your staff is going to be working with other politicians, other congressional staffs, your constituents, and these lobbyists who represent these powerful interest groups. The lowest level people on your staff are going to be these young people, maybe high school and college students, called interns or pages. They work for you, doing lower level job, and while they're doing that, they may be getting credit for their college courses, and if not that, they're learning what it is to be somebody who works in Washington, D.C. They're learning about that job, of what it takes to be a representative. So there's interns and pages, real low-level stuff, down to the point where they're running messages and running routine errands. Okay, so we see Matt Gaetz here. He's Florida District 1's representative. He is our direct representative in the House of Representatives. He represents 700,000 constituents in Florida District 1, which again, Alabama border to about 3-4 counties over. As we see in his website, he has offices in Washington, D.C., which makes sense. And he also has an office in Fort Walton Beach and Pensacola. So I'm his constituent. I want to get a little more personal. I don't want to write a letter or get an email to him. I could show up in his office, talk to his staff, explain what my issues are, and maybe, who knows, arrange a meeting to see my congressman. Here's Marco Rubio's website. He's a senator, so he represents the entire state. So it kind of makes sense. He's going to need a lot more offices than a representative who's just representing one of 27 districts in Florida. So Senator Rubio has offices in Washington, D.C., but also Orlando, Miami, Tampa, Jacksonville, Pensacola, Tallahassee, Palm Beach, Fort Myers, and of course Washington. So it looks like Senator Rubio, any big or mid-sized city in Florida, he's got an office there. So if you're a Floridian, hopefully it's not too long of a drive for you to find your senator's office to either ask for help for something, to give him ideas, to tell him how he can serve your needs as a Florida citizen. We're going to get into this big time. We've already seen that legislatures make law. So that's going to be Congress's #1 job, their most important job. We're going to get into all the details of how that's done. But right here, we're going to start with something simple. Laws start off as a bill. A little itty bitty baby law is a bill. Think of it as a draft, a start, an unfinished, an idea, a proposal for a law. And a bill could be about anything, okay? Where do bills come from? They could come from a constituent. Hi, I'm Steve Biankowski. I'm your constituent. Here's an idea of a law. Whatever. You could get them from interest groups. You can guarantee the NRA, environmental groups, the AARP, there's interest groups for military veterans. They have lots of ideas of laws that our lawmakers can make. So, all these ideas go to that senator or representative. They look at it with their staffs and they try to decide which of these ideas are important enough to the constituents and to the nation that it's worthwhile to try to make this into a law. Over here we see a bill called H.R. 1. What House of Congress does that come out of? Probably H.R. 1 would be the first bill that they have created in that session in the House of Representatives. And just so you know, this is going to be the famous No Child Left Behind bill, which did eventually become a law. And it's a lot of ideas pertaining to how children should be educated. Another big thing that congressmen and their staffs do is this thing called casework. They spend a lot of time working on bills trying to make laws, but they spend an extraordinary amount of time doing casework. Casework is simply anything a constituent might need help with. So, 25 million people in the state of Florida. There's 25 million people in Florida are the constituents to the two senators, and they will have a huge range of things that they might need help with, particularly things they need help with the federal government. A congressman has a much smaller responsibility. Our congressman, again, has about 700,000 constituents he's representing. So these constituents are asking for help, usually with the federal government, about something. And I like this quote here. It's from our hardcover textbook. Casework could include a lost Social Security check, a veteran's widow requesting burial assistance, lots of questions about immigration, farmers' loans, a Medicare claim, railroad retirement, federal rental housing, potentially anything a constituent might need help with. You could look at this slide later when you go through the slideshow. Again, it's on Plan Book like everything else. Why do casework? First, I hope you realize that doing casework is the right thing. Our elected representatives are elected to help us, and particularly help us with the federal government. So, casework is the right thing. A representative or a senator should be helping their constituents in their relationships with the federal government. Why else do our elected officials do casework? So they can get reelected. They do a good job helping out Steve and whatever he needs from the federal government. I'll probably remember that, and when it comes time to vote again, I'll say, I had a problem, Congressman Gates helped me with it, I'm going to vote for him again. I had an issue, I sent an email to my Senator Rick Scott. His staff got back to me. They helped me work on it. I'm a Rick Scott fan. I'll vote for him again. So, again, why do they do casework? Because it's the right thing. It's their job. But why else do they do casework? Helps them connect with voters and helps them get that vote so they can stay in office. You'll see these better in the slideshow when you look at it on Plan Book. Here's some stuff I pulled off the internet dealing with casework. On my right here, this is from Congressman Schiff. He's a congressman from New York. It's basically a form a constituent would fill out, explaining to the congressman's staff what they need help with. Here's my name, here's my address, here's my age, here's where I live, here's my problem. On the left, it's another congressperson. She's basically scheduling meetings on, hey, meet me, meet my staff for casework issues. Come and we'll talk about what you need and how I could help you out. Another big job of congressmen is to take care of their district congressman, or for a senator, the state. Members of Congress spend a lot of time trying to bring U.S. government money and U.S. government jobs to their districts or state. That makes sense. If I'm the representative of Northwest Florida and I can bring in money and jobs to the state, are my constituents happy and satisfied? Of course they are. Are they more likely to vote for me again? Absolutely. So if I'm Representative Gates and I could bring a new military base to Northwest Florida that creates 1,000 jobs, I have just made not just 1,000, but multiples of that voters happy. Okay? Now, a vocabulary term you'll hear is going to be pork barrel projects. It's a slang term or a nickname for federal money that a congressperson tries to bring to their state. It is definitely their job, and it makes common sense that a senator or representative is going to try to bring money and jobs into their state. It's part of their job, and it makes sense. That's how you attract voters, and that's how you make your constituents happy. Pork barrel, though, does that sound like something positive or something negative? And I think most people use pork barrel spending negatively. It comes from this old idea that you used to store pieces of pork in these big barrels. And if you wanted that pork, you dipped your hand into the pork barrel, pulled it out, yummy pork. The idea now that instead of pork, of course, you bring federal money. You dip your hand in there and you pull out some of that yummy federal money so you can bring it to your constituents and say, hey, vote for me, I'm bringing you this money, okay? I think one of the places you may hear this term or see this term of pork barrel spending on the EOC is on political cartoon, okay? So you may see political cartoons like this. Do these look positive? I don't think so. On my right, a little more old-fashioned looking cartoon, and it looks like two representatives are fixing to put a spigot, a faucet, into that big barrel of pork, all right? Just by the way that's drawn or depicted, probably the cartoonist is saying pork barrel spending may be wasteful, it may be silly, it may even be crooked. But I'd say just from the way these people are drawn, I think the cartoonist is skeptical about pork barrel spending. And of course on the left, spending bill, big old pig in there. Clearly the cartoonist is implying that that congressional spending is made up of pork. Great. Why does pork barrel spending have a negative connotation? Because federal money comes from all of our taxes. So what do I mean? I'm Steve Biankowski, I live in Florida. I pay taxes to the United States government. Well, what if some representative or senator from California is using federal money to spend on pork barrel projects? I'm probably not too happy about it in Florida. They may love it in California, but if I live in Florida, Oklahoma, Maine, Connecticut, New York, I'm probably going to be very skeptical of that federal money being spent in California. One of the great examples of pork of all times was the Bridge to Nowhere. Once upon a time, the congresspeople and senators from Alaska got a lot of federal money, spending in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to build a road and a bridge. Well, that kind of makes sense. States need roads and bridges, and there's a lot of federal spending on that because it generally does what? Help citizens. You got to get to work. You got to get to school. Roads, bridges, things like infrastructure are things the government spends heavily on because it helps the citizens and it helps the economy. I can't make money and spend money if I can't get to my job, okay? And the construction project itself brings in a lot of money and jobs. There was no road or bridge there once upon a time. Now there is. So now you have people who work concrete, steel, laboring jobs, construction jobs, have to come, and money has to be spent for that road and that bridge. So the Congress people from Alaska get money to spend on this project of this road and bridge in Alaska, but the problem was it basically went nowhere and it served no one. All it really did was help spend money to create jobs in Alaska. The road and the bridge itself may not have been necessary or needed. So it's a perfect example of that negative idea of pork barrel spending. A bridge to nowhere. It helps Alaskans, they get jobs. But if I live in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Iowa or Alabama or Florida, and I see the government spent $500 million for a bridge in Alaska that does nothing, that's where you get the skepticism on pork barrel spending. So pork barrel spending, jobs, money, funding that Congress people try to bring into their state to help their constituents and, of course, to try to get them positive vibes and probably votes down the road. You may see the term pork barrel spending, pork barrel projects, pork barrel politics. It's usually used negatively, and you may see them come up in the form of a political cartoon. Adios, enjoy, keep learning. See ya.